Happy Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. And we're in the next section of this book, Freedom Over Me. We learned about Peggy yesterday, and now we learn about Stephen. Remember, this is from the Fairchild's estate. And there were 11 slaves, but we're not going to go through all 11 of them. But we were able to derive inspiration from Peggy's life. She was the estate's cook, and she was also an herbal healer doctor. So let's read about Stephen today. Looks like he was purchased for $300. And let's get some information. Mr. Fairchild apprenticed me to the carpentry trade. I work at the big house, building cabins for the slaves, sheds for the cattle. Learning how to work with measurements and tools give me an inner strength. I seek out the secret life of each tool. Building is my blood. I feel an independence in building, a feeling I never got from picking cotton. As my skills increased, the Fairchilds loaned me out to work on other estates. The different projects extend my abilities. I am able to figure out complicated building designs, some that even the foreman cannot. My skills add to the wealth of the Fairchild's estate. I am permitted to teach carpentry to the young slave John. He helps me in my work on the estate. John is like a son to me and Jane. I believe this is John and Jane. Oh, no, this is Dora. So these are new. Oh, and this is John. Okay, so he is permitted to teach John, who's like a son. I love Jane, seamstress to the estate. I built a special sewing shed for her. Oh, Jane is older. To do our work, we learned words, names for cloths and woods. We learned numbers and measurements. To teach a slave to read is a crime. Oh. Secretly, Jane and I taught each other to read. Looking out for each other. Helped by my hidden Bible. Owners of the slaves think reading would give us ideas for freedom. We know that whether we can read or not, we all want to be free. You can see the words in the background. It talks about administrators and executors and just legalese. Okay. Stephen's dreams. Let's read about it. I was enslaved in Central Africa in chained coffles. I survived a long walk to the coast. My family named me Yerodin, meaning studious. My father told me stories of our ancestors, the stone builders of Zimbabwe, the University of Timbuktu. These stories inspired me. My owners see me as their property, following their orders, doing their bidding, but through my carpentry, I feel the accomplishment and pride of a free man. I would choose to design and build homes for people in all climates throughout the world, and for Jane. Jane and I love each other. We dream of a proper marriage in a free land. Nice. Our children then would not be owned by others and slaves for life. They would be our children, free for life. That's beautiful, Stephen. See, is there anything else? We can learn about his mate, who he likes, Jane. Jane was age 28 and Stephen was 32. Okay. Jane, I am a seamstress to Mrs. Fairchild's, noted for my skills with cloth. I design and sew all of Mrs. Fairchild's dresses, tailor shirts and trousers for Mr. Fairchild's as well. I enjoy matching colored cloths, creating unusual patterns. This has brought many compliments to the wearer. Some deep remembrance of woven African cloths lives in me. There were so many requests for my sewing from Mrs. Fairchild's friends. Mr. Fairchild had Stephen build a separate shed as my workplace. I love Stephen. He is carpenter to the estate. He stands tall, walks like a free man. Slave whisper stories they've heard of runaways. Slaves whisper stories they've heard. Those who made it. Heartbreaking stories of those caught, returned to slavery, brutally punished. Stephen and I have talked of running away, getting past patter rollers and their bloodhounds. At Fairchild's grand parties, after the guest slaves, helpers are no longer needed, they gather in our cabins, whispering stories of slave resistance and runaways. We sing our slave songs loud to cover our talk. One day, Stephen and I will live together, free. Yes. And we see the auction announcements and advertisements. This is a beautiful book, and this is by Ashley Bryan, the 3-time Coretta Scott King Award winner. And let's read about Jane's dreams. Growing up in my West African village, I was precious to my parents. They named me Sirwa, meaning jewel. I was apprenticed as a child to my family's textile industry. I worked beside my parents. My eyes danced to the making of cloths. I thought the spinning, weaving, the dyeing of fabrics was a miracle of threads. Threads becoming cloths, cloths becoming clothes to wear. One day, slave raiders attacked our village. My parents were killed, fighting to protect me. I was captured. Enslaved in America, I stood naked, sold on the auction block. At the estate, weaving became my salvation. Working with cloths became the songs of my hands. I have grown in artistry through the clothes I create. The praise I receive, I offer as a tribute to my ancestors. Stephen and I treat the young slave John as our son. We never lose hope that we will one day live free. I weave these thoughts into dream cloths of freedom. Isn't that beautiful? Such prose. Can we squeeze in John? When I was 8 years old, he's 16 now, I was given as a birthday gift to Mrs. Fairchild. Oh my goodness. I was born on her brother's plantation in South Carolina. He owned more than 100 slaves. Children born became the owner's property. I never knew my mother and father. We children worked in the fields like grown-ups. At the Fairchild's estate, I tended the cattle. I carried messages to the Fairchild's friends. I was given a pass to show the patter rollers no Negro could walk out of the estate without a pass. He would be brutally beaten. I'm treated as a son by seamstress Jane and carpenter Stephen. Stephen teaches me how to work with tools. I help him with estate building projects. I want to be like Stephen, proud, caring, and intelligent. Secretly, Stephen and Jane are teaching me to read and write. They say we'll be free one day, and you will teach others. My thoughts of escaping to freedom grow stronger every day. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. Let's see if John has a dream. Oh, he does. I've learned about Africa from the slaves with whom I live. I've known hardship, seen cruel treatment, but I've heard slaves tell stories of Africa's rich cultures, stories of Dahomey, metal and clay sculptures, tribal ceremonial masks and carvings. These stories and the African songs the elders of the estate taught us awakened the artist in me. Stephen and Jane saw me drawing with sticks in the clay earth. They gave me used papers. I drew everything, people, animals, plants. I hide my art from my owners, but I show my work to the other slaves. They praise my drawings. They call me Oser, a Yoruba name for artist. They say, we're proud of you. That makes me feel good. I wonder how art came to me as slave. Was it from pictures hung in the big house? Was it from art I saw in homes I entered carrying messages? No matter what work I do on the estate, even learning carpentry from Stephen, I think of drawing. I plan one day to draw freely from free Negro people. I will create loving portraits of their strength and beauty. Oh my goodness, these three individuals inspired me from wherever they were from in Africa. Let's inspire others. Let's help others become their best version of themselves while we have time. Good evening.